It's a matter of honor and pride to have our esteemed chief guest, Sri Athithan Gopalaswamy, former DRDO chairman, with us today. A man of veracity, humility, and caliber, Dr. Gopalaswamy, an erudite scholar, completed his BE in Electronics and Communications at the Coimbatore Institute of Technology. He subsequently went on to earn his PhD in physics, specializing in neural networks from IIT Mumbai. Following a 7-year tenure in the Department of Atomic Energy, he transitioned to the Defense Research and Development Organization, wherein his sole mission was to empower India with cutting-edge defense technologies and a mission to achieve self-reliance during critical times. During his time at DAE, Dr. Athithan focused on computer graphics, computer-aided design, and the modeling of Penrose patterns and crystal structures. In his role as DRDO, he made significant contributions to parallel computing technology, scientific data visualization, and information security solutions. He was a distinguished scientist and a Director General of DRDO at the time of his retirement.
After retiring, he served as a DRDO chair at the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics in Bengaluru. His current research interests encompass artificial intelligence, data mining, and cybersecurity. Dr. Athithan is the co-author of 2 books, one on outlier detection and another on cybersecurity. He has published about 25 papers in archive journals and about 30 papers in conference proceedings. Additionally, he holds the status of a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer. We are privileged and extremely honored to get this glorious opportunity to have you in our midst today, sir. We now take the prime privilege of inviting you, sir, to present your address.
Dr. Sahu, Mr. Panigrahi, Ms. Pandey, Mr. Agnihotri, and the team that coordinated my visit here, Ms. Khanna and Ms. Razia, and also yesterday who received me from the airport, Mr. Anurag Somani, and dear children, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you, my very warm good morning. I am very happy to be here at the invitation of Mr. Panigrahi, who I believe is doing a wonderful job from whatever little I have seen so far. I thank him for the invitation. And I also thank the organizing team once again. One small clarification, I would like to make before I move on to my presentation. That is, I retired. I was in central government service. I retired as Director General of DRDO, not Chairman of DRDO. A small correction I would like to make. Chairman is one position higher than the Director General's position. Yeah. Now, when I was invited to speak to all of you, there was this requirement to decide on the topic. It was not difficult for me given my background and also given the times we are living in. This is the age of computing. This is the age of information. And therefore, I decided I have to talk to you on what is the rage of today, which is artificial intelligence. I would like to add also autonomous systems, robots, etc. So, let us start at the beginnings, how this age actually began. It didn't begin, in fact, in the last century, not even in the 15th century. It began sometime in the antiquity. When I say antiquity, it is about more than 2000 years ago in Greece and as well as in India, our own country. You must have heard about algorithms by now. You know, whether you are doing physics or chemistry or biology, you must be using computers today for doing your homework, solving any problem which involves maths. So algorithms in fact started around 2000 years ago. I would say that is the true beginning of information age. So we had this Euclid's algorithm for finding out what is called the greatest common divisor. If you take two numbers, let's say for example 15 and 27, the GCD, the greatest common divisor, is 3, right? This we can find out by some trial and error. But if I give you some very large, two large numbers, 5 digit, 10 digits or hundreds of digits, in fact in computer security we have to deal with numbers having thousands of digits. So you need an algorithm to find out what is this greatest common divisor. And this was created some 2000 years ago. You can go and check. Then numbers, when you talk about them, some numbers in fact cannot be divided by any other number. Those numbers are called prime numbers, and it is important to find out what are the prime numbers which are less than, let us say, a given number n. And for this also a very elegant algorithm was developed by one Eratosthenes. Now we come to India. We have Silba Shastras which actually explain how the hypotenuse of a right-angled triangle should be computed as a function of the other two sides. And of course, it's quite well known that we invented the concept of zero and therefore the positional number system. So all this in fact was the beginning of the information age. Don't let anyone tell you that information age started only about 100 years ago. It started way back. Now let's fast forward, come to 18th century. Just around that time, we entered into what is called the industrial age. You all must be familiar. We had steam engines and we had electricity. Very important. They are important even today, particularly electricity. What it led was the amplification of the human muscular energy. That is an important dimension of this industrial age. But a model of a computer also was in fact conceived around that time. But obviously it was conceived in terms of pulleys, levers, using mechanical components, because the electronics had not been born. But the first model of a computer was actually proposed in the industrial age, about 200 years ago. Again we move forward, we come to 20th century, the last century, middle of last century. So that is when you had the computing and networking revolution. It started with the invention of transistor, then it became actually the building block of modern computers today. Miniaturization, in fact, made it possible for you to have millions of transistors in your single mobile phone. What actually it led was the creation of artificial intelligence and autonomous systems, as I mentioned. And what is this? This is actually driving towards the amplification of the human mind. See, we talked about amplification of the muscle in the industrial age, and now in the information age, your mind is going to be amplified. You only have to think and tell the computer will do the rest. We will see, how to deal with the computer to achieve what you want. Now, we should also see, we keep talking about computers, but what are the limits of computers? Let us get some insights about the potential or real power of computing. For this, I thought some very interesting quotations from famous computer scientists will help you. This is only a small selection, but I thought, this will give you some idea of what is the power of computers. Let us start with the 19th century lady called Ada Lovelace. She said, you remember I mentioned about analytical engine in the previous slide. This lady said, the analytical engine can do whatever we know how to order it to perform. That is, it is not enough to say what you want, but you also have to tell the computer how to do it. You have to give detailed steps or instructions. So if you have that detailed set of instructions, then the computer can follow and achieve the end result. So now, who limits actually the power of the computers? It is we. Our imagination is what limits the power of the computers. If you improve your imagination, if you can learn how to tell the computer better and better, computer can do everything that you want it to do. Only thing is, you'll have to tell the computer how to do it. That is what is called programming. Okay. Then there was a very famous mathematician by name von Neumann. He was echoing the same sentiment of this lady, Ada Lovelace. He said, you insist that there is something a machine cannot do. If you tell me precisely what is it that a machine cannot do, then I can always make a machine which will just do that. He is in fact the father of what is called stored program computer. That is, till then, of course, he proposed it in the 40s and 50s of last century. Till then, you have to give one instruction to the computer will perform that instruction, then the next instruction you have to give to the computer, like that. But this gentleman actually came forward and said, no, you can store all the instructions in the memory and make the computer read one instruction by another instruction on its own. So that is the birth of what is called stored program computer. So he was in fact the father of that concept. That is what is the concept till today. Now, of course, we may be thinking in terms of neural computing, etc., but I'll come to that later. Then there was another famous scientist, Alan Turing, a British scientist. Incidentally, Alan Turing was born in a place called Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu. His father was working in Andhra Pradesh, mother was in Nilgiris, the child was born there, but for school education he was sent to England. So thereafter he didn't come back, but he was born in India. That's a very interesting statistic. He is considered as one of the pioneers of computing. There is a model called the Turing model. You all should go check up what it is. And he said, a man provided with paper, pencil, rubber, and subject to strict discipline is in effect a universal computing machine. The concept of universal computing machine actually is attributed to him. And finally, I like this gentleman very much. This is a Dutch scientist by name Edsger Dijkstra. He said the question of whether computers can think is like the question of whether submarines can swim or aeroplanes can fly. I mean, it is no longer relevant. Computers are actually thinking machines. Gradually, in fact, they are going to think on their own. That is what is artificial intelligence all about. Now, in this context, I would like to mention to you one interesting anecdote associated with our famous mathematician Ramanujan. I think many of you might have heard about him, Srinivasa Ramanujan. He was in England collaborating with one British mathematician called George Hardy. Hardy has written a very good book on discrete mathematics. I think some of you should explore that. So one day when Ramanujan was in hospital recovering from some illness, this Hardy goes and meets him with a flower bouquet and tells Ramanujan casually that, I traveled in a cab. The number of the cab is a very uninteresting number. It is 1729. I think some of you seem to know this number. You are nodding your head. And Ramanujan said, no, Hadi, this is a very interesting number. And he says, it is the smallest number expressible as the sum of two cubes in two different ways. Actually, it is 12 cube plus 1 cube, and also 9 cube plus 10 cube. It's the smallest such number. So casually, in fact, he pulled it out of his mind. So I don't know, like that, for every number he might have had a story. So he was a human computer. So now let us move to the core of my presentation, artificial intelligence. See, intelligence is a very, very complex capability. There is no most intelligent person. There is always scope for improvement. So artificial intelligence cannot be any less complex than intelligence itself. So one definition will not suffice. So you have to look at artificial intelligence, what it is, from multiple angles. So let us start with some general definition. The general definition is, it is simulation of human intelligence. Much like simulation of many complex physical phenomena. I like this definition. So there are many complex phenomena like weather. Normally we say weather is unpredictable, but today in fact we predict weather very, very accurately, right? If you, of course, invest enough, you can predict today's afternoon weather morning itself. It is very much necessary, in fact, for defense purposes. So simulating human intelligence is actually what is artificial intelligence. That's a very useful definition. But a working definition goes a little bit, beyond this in a practical way. It says it is intelligence embodied in a machine that can interpret input data. Input data is required. Apply knowledge, either already stored or extracted from data, to achieve set goals. Goal orientation is important. Learn and extract knowledge from data, even while performing its job or exclusively only during a learning phase, and perform better over time. It has to improve its performance through the help of a teacher or feedback. So this is a very good working definition. It covers, in fact, all aspects associated with artificial intelligence. But for those of you who are mathematically inclined, who want an abstract definition, I would suggest this third definition. It is the art of going from point A to point B in a given space. The space can be also complex, not just physical space, but complex mathematical spaces, satisfying predefined conditions along the path. So this is a very, very good mathematically, sound definition of AI. There is one important subdomain of AI that I think we have to focus a little bit more, and that is called machine learning. AI is, in fact, application of what is learned and also learning in the process. Or sometimes, initially to learn things and then apply the knowledge that has been learned. So machine learning actually becomes very critical. If machine learning is not there, all the knowledge required for the machine to apply should be given by experts like us. You have to go to a doctor, he will give rules. You have to go to a designer, he will give rules, The problem with this is, in many domains, the rules actually cannot be complete or exhaustive. And one expert may give one set of rules, another expert may give another set of rules. And some of the rules, may be deep inside the mind, they cannot externalize it. So, therefore, it was decided that rules must be extracted from given data from a domain. Okay, so that is where machine learning becomes very important. But when we are extracting knowledge, rules or whatever from data, there are two methods of extracting, such knowledge. In one method, the knowledge is explicit. you can actually see in the form of some data structure, in the form of what is called decision tree or rule base. But there is also an equally powerful way of extracting knowledge where the knowledge is implicit. You will not be able to understand, where the knowledge is stored. It is stored as weights in a big network of neurons. So the second category is called implicit knowledge. In the human brain, both the kinds of knowledges are there. In fact, we have neurons, neural networks, and some of our knowledge is implicit. We call it intuition, but some of the knowledge is explicit. We can explain to somebody else. Someone asks you, why did you, tell me that this is the final answer? You can explain. No, it is because of this, because of this, because of this. So we have both explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. But at present, in AI, what is available today, there is one set of methods which generate explicit knowledge from data, another set of methods that extract only implicit knowledge. The challenge is to find a new method which can extract both and put them together. We will see that a little bit more in detail. Now, I was talking about neural networks, talking about implicit knowledge, extracting implicit knowledge from data. Basically, it is done by training a neural network. And there is some concept called deep neural network. The word deep is used because in the deep neural network, you have many layers. There is an input layer where data is fed. Then there are intermediate layers. You can have 5, 10, 20, or even hundreds, thousands. And today's large computers can, in fact, allow you to have thousands of layers of neurons. And there is an output layer where the decision comes out. Like you give a picture, it will tell what are the objects in the picture, what are their identities. Okay? All the processing is done by the intermediate layers. And the intermediate layers would have learned, in fact, how to do the classification in an earlier learning session. So these are basically what are called deep neural networks. And they are very, very successful today. Because of which, in fact, we are now talking about self-driving cars. What is required for a self-driving car? The first thing it requires is when it is on the road, it should see all the other vehicles, the pedestrians, the animals, the lampposts, and of course the potholes and the speed breakers, everything it has to see. And see in real time, very fast. And it knows where it has to go, but it has to make detours to avoid these obstacles on the road. So, computer vision in real time is what is very much required for autonomous, self-driving vehicles. And it is now possible because of the success of these neural networks in real-time recognition of objects in the environment, even as it actually drives forward. I'll not go into some technical details, which you can in fact find out. I'll be leaving a copy of the slide here. Here you see on the right side, there is a picture. If you are able to see, this is an example of the computer vision program called YOLO. You only look once. There is a version 5 and then now 6, 7, 8 and all that. This gives you actually real-time tagging, identification of the objects in the scene. So it puts the yellow boxes. That is a car, that is a lorry, that is a person, etc., etc. And it will keep updating. If a new person comes into the scene, it will put another yellow box around him. And this information is made available to the machine so that the controls can be manipulated to properly move forward. Do what is called the trajectory planning, then motion planning, etc., etc. Okay? Now, so computer vision is one very successful area. Then hearing and speaking, I'm just speaking to you, you are hearing, right? I'm not in fact painting pictures very fast like in an animation film, that will be more sophisticated, more interesting, but humans have this limitation that they can only speak and not paint at the rate at which they speak. So this is a very important faculty, speaking and hearing. And what the human beings are able to do successfully, are neural networks able to do now successfully? Yes. I think many of you might have heard about ChatGPT, right? GPT is generative pre-trained network, transformer, T for transformer, right? Basically, the GPT, what it does is, if you give actually a sequence of an incomplete sentence, it will complete the sentence. And when it completes the sentence, it will be grammatically accurate. And that is a great challenge. It's not easy. To me, in fact, this capability appears to be somewhat magical. Purely using statistics of, a lot of natural language text, these neural networks, the GPTs and also the chat GPTs are able to produce new sentences which are grammatically correct, and also they make some sense. They say they convey something. So this is a very remarkable success story in the area of hearing and speaking based on neural networks. It is just the beginning. They can be used for translation from one language to another language. And in India, in fact, it is very important because we have so many languages. So if we can tap the potential of this neural networks, deep neural networks, we can effortlessly, translate, let us say, from English into Oriya or from Tamil into Gujarati, etc., in real time. And everyone can understand what is being spoken about. So there is also the machine summarization. You all must be familiar with the Prezi writing, right? When you are given a long paragraph, you have to reduce it to a short, small paragraph. Computers can do it now. Only thing is, computers are doing it in a slightly primitive way. They don't do it exactly like you children do. They take some important sentences from the given text and then put them all together. They make some little extra work to stitch those sentences together. But they are in fact moving forward into making what is called an extractive summary. What they are right now doing is interactive summary. That is, there is a particular terminology I am not able to exactly tell you, but it is picking some sentences from a given text and stringing them together to create the summary. On the other hand, the extractive summary is supposed to create new sentences to describe, in fact, what is a summary of a given text. So that's a very interesting capability. So lots of things are happening. Today I will not be able to, talk to you all about it, but I'll try to give some idea of, where we are going, what are the opportunities for you, and what are the challenges, in fact, you should focus on as you move forward. Now, contemporary applications and opportunities, that is what I think you should focus on. So there is this advanced industrial automation, which actually requires real-time object detection, recognition, etc. This, in fact, I already explained to you that YOLO actually is able to do. Self-driving vehicles, in fact, have to be able to do that. The same technology can be adopted, modified for conveyor belt applications, for weeding out bad objects or poor quality objects. You can do audio signal processing to predict fault or failure in advance in combination with other system parameter values. This is called preventive maintenance. Many of us normally feel maintenance is a boring job. It should be done only by not so bright people. But that is not very correct. In fact, maintenance is very important because once you, in fact, buy expensive machines, you'll have to make sure you get full benefit out of it, out of the investment. And you go to a hospital, you have some expensive machines. And you have transportation, you have aircrafts, and you have ships, and you go to defense, they use some very, very expensive platforms. All of them have to be maintained. And AI, artificial intelligence, can help maintenance in a big way by looking at the past errors, past problems, and how they were rectified. Based on that, if any kind of signals are coming out before the machine fails, based on the signals, we should be able to find out what is the future fault that is likely and then correct those faults, before they occur. So that is done easily using advanced industrial automation. Video analytics, by looking at the video of a scene, one should be able to find out what is the person doing and what is his demeanor. If he is actually a customer service person, is he friendly with the customer, or he is somewhat aggressive or adversarial with the customer? Those kinds of body languages can be identified by doing what is called video analytics. You must have all heard about sign language. Those who can't speak or hear, they can actually see the sign language and understand what is being communicated. Computers can actually, also do that. One interesting thing about sign language is, its range is very large. Whereas if you speak, you have to have a microphone, or you should be within earshot, within a certain limited distance. Whereas sign can be seen by a person who is very far, reasonably, far away than what actually speech can reach. I mentioned about speech and language processing earlier. So you have opportunities to work on machine translation for Indian languages, machine summarization for Indian languages, real-time subtitling. Subtitling is now readily available on YouTube videos and all that. But it is not available readily for Indian languages. There is a lot of, in fact, opportunity for us to focus in that area. And I mentioned earlier autonomous unmanned vehicles. They can be, in fact, used for search and identification and rescue. Supposing somebody is lost and he is not able to communicate where he is, so you can actually set out a drone and give some kind of a photo of that person, who should be located, and information should be transferred back to a rescue team. That kind of a thing can be done by autonomous unmanned vehicles. See, these are already being done. These two slides which I explained to you. You might say, what is new that I have to do? In fact, these things are not done to the level of accuracy required, the speed at which it is to be done. So that is where a lot of challenges are available to you to tackle. Now, but I was talking about some issues. AI is exciting, there are a lot of opportunities, but there are also issues. And they need attention urgently. And they can be categorized broadly into data-related and model-related. Because data is the basic input for learning, extracting knowledge. Model is the one that actually extracts that knowledge from data. So these are the two broad domains you'll have to focus on. So what is the problem associated with data? As you can see, training requires plenty of data. But there are some domains in which plenty of data is not available. So what do you do? So that is a challenging problem. I'm not going to give you solutions. You'll have to go figure out, talk to your teachers. But there is also an issue of rogue and adversarial input, manipulated input to fool the model, thinking that model is actually receiving some genuine data. This is also a serious challenge. How do we weed out rogue and adversarial input so that the model doesn't get into issues? Of course, a reliable, robust model should be able to do it on its own, but if the model is not very robust, you have to do it externally. Now, the model-related issues are more serious, more difficult to address. You see, the deep neural network, as I said, is based on implicit knowledge. So it is actually a black box. You might have heard about black box and white box in computing science. So knowledge extracted is distributed, in the weights. So the system cannot explain why it arrived at a final decision. Why it said, given a picture, the picture has a horse, or picture has a boat, or picture has a steam engine, whatever. You have to just accept it. You hope you have trained it very well, but this is an issue. We need explanations. We will see quickly why. And training the deep neural networks faces one technical problem. As I said, the network may have a lot of intermediate layers. All those intermediate layer weights have to be modified during the training process. But in practice, what happens is, at the outermost layer, the output layer, the corrections can be done effectively. The corrections are actually done by differentiating the output with respect to the weight values, which are programmable, which are modifiable. That's how learning happens. Learning happens by modifying the weights, depending on what is the desired output, right? So at the outermost layers, the differentiation works all right. But as you move backwards towards the input layer, the differentiation starts becoming weak and it produces only zero values. So therefore, the weights cannot be changed at all. So this is a very serious problem. There are ways of tackling it, but we need new ideas. Another important problem, in my opinion, is today's neural networks are tailored for solving one class of problems. So there is one network for language understanding, another network for computer vision, a third network for planning. But what we need actually is a multimodal neural network. We should be able to integrate, the capabilities of these existing neural networks into a super neural network. So this is another job that is to be done. How do you bring in meaning, semantics as it is called, into the weights of the neural networks or assemblies of neural networks? So these are all challenges. Now quickly we will see, among the issues we saw, explainability of outcome is a very important one. Like I said, explainability is very important. I'll, explain to you now why it is important. So we need trust and verifiability. Perhaps low in face recognition and language translation, but supposing the AI system is giving some advice to a doctor, medical diagnosis, the doctor would like to know why, in fact, that advice was given to him. The machine should be able to, it is like, junior doctor asks a senior doctor should be able to convince a junior doctor, otherwise a junior doctor, may not be very comfortable. An intelligent junior doctor would not like to blindly accept what the senior says. And in autonomous driving, explainability is important, particularly if there is an accident, then when lawyers come in, it should be very clearly established who was in the wrong, whether the pedestrian who was knocked down is in the wrong or the machine, the car which was, driving itself was wrong, based on some recorded evidence, maybe video cameras, etc. And the explanations are today legislative requirements, legal requirements. Fairness. Supposing you are using an AI program to sanction loan for somebody, it is not done manually. The machine actually takes all the data. What is his income? Where is he living? How old he is? What is his family responsibility? Many of these things are quantified and a loan application is processed, a decision is given. But if a loan application is rejected, then that customer is actually right in asking for an explanation. He cannot be simply told, get lost, we are not approving your loan, not in a democracy. Okay? Now, there is also this explanation required in the European regulation called GDPR. That's called General Data Protection Regulation. In fact, we have to insist that whatever AI is getting developed should have a built-in explanation module. If required, it should be able to give an explanation. Difficult, but that's a challenge that we'll have to tackle. Then human-in-loop needs explanations. See, for a defense commander, for him to approve the firing, he needs actually some kind of an explanation from the system. If you leave it completely autonomous to the system, sometimes there can be what are called false alarms. The machine might in fact mistake our own fighter jet plane as the enemy's plane and shoot it down. It has happened, in fact, in the past. So that is why still military believes there must be a man in the loop, commander in the loop, and he should in fact be convinced before he approves the decision of the AI system. And for a doctor to understand the recommendations of a diagnosis, I explained. In fact, explanations can weed out spurious classifications. Sometimes AI can make false alarms. We can in fact recognize that it is a false alarm if there is an explanation. And explanations actually can lead to new insights. In fact, now this knowledge extraction is becoming very complex. In some areas, AI is able to create new knowledge which humans in fact have not been able to create. Or laboriously, whatever knowledge was extracted from data, the neural network programs are able to simplify. In some domains, people were using some 100 or 200 equations. And the neural networks have reduced those number of equations from 200 to some 4. It is quite possible. Because it's a very powerful method of mapping input to output. Any input to any output. Provided, of course, there is data linking these two things. So, explainability is very important. Now, let us see the next important thing, that is reliable AI. It's equally important, if not more important. This is very much required in what is called safety critical and mission critical AI applications. We are spending a lot of money in sending a robot to moon. Obviously, we don't want it to fail, and if there is some AI involved in it, actually there was some AI, right, in the robot to find a suitable path to land on the moon's surface. That was actually AI for autonomous identification of a good spot to land. You would like to make sure that this AI works perfectly. If it did not, if that had failed, the whole nation would have gone into mourning. Right? And explanation is, in fact, okay, after an accident happens, but reliable AI only can prevent an accident. Right? So you have autonomous driving car, but let us say, it has an unreliable AI, accident happens, but it has explainability, capability, but that's not enough because somebody has already died. Somebody is dead. So, reliable AI actually is very important. What is reliability? It is to be free of errors, behaving as expected, especially for new inputs in the field, unseen inputs in the field. Right? During learning, it sees some inputs and the corresponding outputs. It learns the mapping function. But in the field, it sees new inputs and it should behave correctly to all the new inputs. That is what is a reliable AI system. And there is this concept called a trustworthy AI. See, AI also should be trustworthy because it is intelligent. When you hire a person, you have to make sure he is trustworthy or she is trustworthy, right? So you do it by your own way, some background check and things like that. Of course, it is never complete, but some checking is done. AI system also, because it is becoming smarter and smarter, you'll have to make sure it is trustworthy. The person who has sold it to you has not put some, Trojan or backdoor inside it. So you'll have to make sure that there are no backdoors. That's very important. And that actually also leads us to secure AI. AI that is secure against adversaries sending malicious data, etc. So now the promise of deep NNs in realizing AI is beyond doubt. It's a recap of issues. One, of course, is they are black boxes. We'll have to make sure explainability is built into them. Another one is if data is not clean, how do you, in fact, label it correctly or weed it out? During operation, they make serious mistakes, especially on unseen and adversarial input, how to tackle this. So these are the recap of issues. The directions for R&D, what I would like to suggest is, currently the neural networks are made up of single neurons, whose functionality is very simple. They take a vector of information and produce a scalar of output, a label. very large neural networks are made up of these elemental neurons. Now you'll have to think in terms of more complex neurons, maybe a higher order neuron which is made up of assembly of basic neurons. That higher order neuron actually, can learn semantics. So that is, in my opinion, the way forward. I mean, I'm just trying to plant some seed in your minds. You can go ahead and then see, how to take it forward. Especially those who are going to pursue a career in computer science, AI, etc. Even others, those who are specializing in biology also should see how, in fact, you can extract new concepts from human brain and apply them on the current neural networks to make them more capable, more explainable. And you have to think in terms of multimodal, multisensory architectures, as I explained earlier. You can study brain fluids, their role, effect of the environment on the connection weights, even while actually the neural network is performing its operations. Now, I have said enough about neurons, neural networks, AI. I would like to change course. And this, I think, I hope all of you will listen very carefully. See, learning and creating knowledge is not just technical in nature. Other more fundamental aspects are involved, as this slide shows. Incidentally, this is from our ancient text called Upanishads. This particular slide is from Chandogya Upanishad, which actually means a chanter's teaching. Just listen carefully to the dialogue here. Sanat Kumara, Lord Muruga, he says to Narada, "Come to me with what you know, and I will tell you something higher than that." Then Sanat Kumara, after hearing from Narada, he says, "All that you have learnt actually is name." Name is, another term for declarative knowledge. If somebody asks you a question, you will be able to give an answer. What is the capital of India? You will say Delhi. What is the capital of Bangladesh? You will say Dhaka, whatever. Or who invented electric bulb? Edison, something like that. That is declarative knowledge, that is name. Then Sanat Kumara says there is something greater than name, and it is speech. Speech actually is a skill. It is different from knowing certain things. Speech is actually application of knowledge. You got to make a distinction between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge actually is skill, and skill is more important than declarative knowledge. But he doesn't stop there. Narada asks, "Blessed one, is there anything greater than speech?" Then Sanat Kumara says, "Mind is greater than speech because it encloses both name and speech. It has declarative knowledge, it has procedural knowledge. It's a superset. Therefore, it is greater than both." But to me, the more important thing is coming now. Narada still asks, "Blessed one, is there anything greater than mind?" Actually, there's a big sequence that goes on. If you go to the Upanishad and read it, you will find. The Sanat Kumara says, will, sankalpa, is greater than mind. Will to do things, will to achieve, will to lead, that is more important than skill or declarative knowledge. Of course, you have to acquire declarative knowledge. Of course, you have to develop skills to apply that knowledge in practice. But you have to have will towards something, momentum towards something. And then, you can also see this Tattatreya teaching says something very, very useful, equally useful. It says, "May my body be very active, my tongue be most honeyed." When you say something, say it sweetly. There is always a choice. "May I hear widely with my ears." Of course, speech is emphasized, but equally important, if not more important, is hearing, listening is equally important. First listen and then you speak. Now you are in fact listening to me, right? It's equally important than speaking. And protect what I have heard. That is, keep the knowledge locked up inside. Don't let it evaporate. So all this, in fact, our ancient sages have said. These are very, very fundamental, basic. If you follow this, if you keep this in your mind, you will go a long, long way. Reach your full potential. Okay, now we come to the last slide. See, accomplishing big things. One more slide. Accomplishing big things require big teams. Working alone, you cannot achieve big things. You need to be part of a big team. You can be the leader of the team, but still you need actually workers. For example, as I said, to land a robot on moon or build a fighter jet like Tejas, you need big, big teams. Collaboration is the foundation of such feats. You must have heard about this. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. Is it possible to quantify this? I have a formula for that. Normally we say 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, but I'll say it is 4. N plus n actually is n square. That's the formula I am suggesting. Okay? Or n multiplied by n. In defense parlance, this formula is called Metcalfe's law. If the sum is 2, the power is 2 square. Okay? So I think there is a small correction that is required. The sum is 2, the power is 2 square. The sum is 3, the power is 3 square. That's how actually you have to read it. The precondition actually for realizing this power is tight coupling of the different parts of the whole. Let me tell you, this is the only way to be globally competitive today. If you want to compete with the rest of the world, in fact, the rest of the world is actually collaborating. There are lots of small countries, but they are doing big things. How are they doing? They are collaborating. We are already a big country, therefore we think, we don't have to collaborate with each other. But if you want to achieve big things, you have to collaborate. How to realize, the spirit of collaboration in this strength in practice? Put your nation above your self. Ever so slightly. You don't have to, in fact, completely submit yourself to the nation, but keep the nation a little bit above than yourself. And also see yourself in every fellow Indian. That is how, in fact, you can bond and do bigger things which you alone will not be able to do. So we come to the last slide. Hope I was able to convey some of my understanding of AI to all of you. And thanks for very patient listening. And I guess there is some time.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for enabling us to navigate through the complex world of technology, the power of computing, the meaning of intelligence, knowledge, and artificial intelligence, the power of neural networks, contemporary applications and opportunities which enable us to move forward in this progressive world. Of course, the most important takeaway is the will to learn, and we need to imbibe it, each and every one of us. So we are truly indebted to you today, and thank you for this trove of knowledge that you shared with us. Now, the floor is open for questions from our audience present here. I humbly request, sir, to kindly answer the questions. Yes, please.
Good morning, sir. You mentioned in your speech that AI, being a simulation of human intelligence, would soon start thinking on its own. And little later, you elaborated on extractive thinking, if I'm not wrong, which means AI could create new sentences to summarize large passages. With regard to these statements, what is your view on AI and the application of AI with originality in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, I think a very interesting question, to be frank. Normally we think originality is a domain reserved for humans. But the way AI is going forward, I have a feeling it can create its own new knowledge, new things. Just to give you maybe one example, you know this proof that an isosceles triangle, a triangle with two sides equal, you have to prove that the angles are also equal, right? So for this, the standard proof is you draw a bisecting line from the apex angle. Then you have two rectangles and then you show that they are congruent. And therefore the angles are equal, angles opposite to the equal sides. I remember that the AI system was asked to give a proof. So it didn't draw actually the bisecting line. It simply said, consider triangles ABC and ACB. And these are two congruent triangles. So hence the angles are actually equal. So that is how it proved, apparently. So since you asked me, originality is not possible, I'm just giving you this example, it is possible. There are many ways to reach from the source to the destination. And once, in fact, the program is trained actually to negotiate all possible paths, it may be able to find a path that is better than what humans actually can find. Because humans have, unfortunately, finite amount of space to search. In computers, which are running actually the AI program, there is no such limit. So they can explore more paths. And some of those paths may be more optimal. So originality is nothing but coming up with a new path, meeting some constraints and conditions. So you're convinced? Computers can actually produce some original results because
Yes,
they can
sir.
explore more. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
in economics, there is a demand and supply chain. That means demand is created before supply. Sir, don't you think that the demand for AI is created and then we are programmed to trust it?
Good question. This is a utilitarian question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in science, generally knowledge is created without worrying about its utility. Utility actually comes later. I'll give you one example to illustrate this point. You are all familiar with this, what do you call, computer-aided tomography, CAT?
Yes, sir.
For your parents or for your uncles, you might have gone to some hospital to take this CAT pictures. There is a very interesting algorithm that actually converts the X-ray data into three-dimensional picture. That algorithm was invented, it's called a radon transform. That algorithm was invented in 1919, early part of last century. Computers were not there. It's just a mathematical algorithm. But once computers were available, that algorithm could be used actually to convert the projectional X-ray data into three-dimensional pictures. Like that, there are a lot of examples where knowledge, models are created, and then later, in fact, they have been found to be useful. So you never know, what way some knowledge that is discovered today would be useful tomorrow. Science is always satisfying curiosity. You don't ask about what is the immediate application. I think it is a good time to share an anecdote with you. It seems in Royal Society lecture, this Michael Faraday, who is the father of electricity, he explains about this induction principle, motor principle. And somebody in the audience says, what is the use of this? And Faraday says, what is the use of a newborn baby? So that's the answer. So don't worry about utility. Utility will come. Follow your heart. Follow your interest.
Thank you, sir.
Agreed?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for enlightening our children.